Hi, folks. It's me again, Barry with Barry's 8-Track and Classic Car Radio Repair. And today we're demonstrating my signature, another one of my signature full Delco system conversions. And I'm just giving you a quick shot at the unit so that you know what I'm talking about, because I'm going to be digressing quite a bit as I explain a lot about my service and how this stuff is hooked together and works and everything. So we'll start with this system comes from Tony in Fort Wayne, Indiana. And this is an Oldsmobile system. The radio is out of a 69 Olds Cutlass, and then the 8-track appears to be of the same year. It was sent from a different state. The radio was sent from Fort Wayne, Indiana, and the 8-track was sent from Boise, Idaho. So this sounds like probably an eBay purchase that the unit was sent directly to me. And now when I talk about my full Delco system conversion, that's just kind of like one of the names it goes by. It'll work with pretty much any system. Delco's, most systems that are separate 8-track and radios are Delco systems, so that's kind of why I coined it the Delco system. But of course, Chrysler also had a couple systems that were separate radio and 8-tracks. So did Ford, and and really pretty much any 8-track, even an aftermarket 8-track, can be made to work with a converted radio. So now I'm going to get into what goes on with the radio. Now this customer has requested pretty much the all bells and whistles package. We've done a modern conversion on the radio, so it now has FM, 180 watts peak total power, true stereo output for up to 4 speakers, and then so as you can see, the front is completely unchanged. There's no evidence at all from the dash that the unit's been modified. So we turn her around, and here's where we installed the Bluetooth and USB module. This has a jack called mic and PB. Neither of them is used, except if you want to use the external mic, then you can plug that in, but it does have an internal microphone. The only reason I would use the external microphone is like if you have a convertible and you want to mount the mic, say, on your visor so it's right close to your mouth to eliminate the wind noise. That would be a good reason to use the external microphone, but so far no one's really reported any problems using the built-in microphone, and I've had a customer call me from it, and his voice was very intelligible. Thankfully, a car's acoustical environment is very conducive to clear speech because it's a tight environment. So we've got on the back of the unit here. This is just our Bluetooth module that we don't really, in most cases, don't need to worry about these connections. Here is the harness that replaces the original connectors if you want to be able to operate 4 speakers with full power. Most radios will need to have this new harness installed, except for some later Delcos that are already running into an isolated speaker system. So there is our connector, and then the customer receives, needless to say, the customer receives the matching connector, to wire into his car. You've got 8 speaker wires, hot ground, dash or dial lighting, and then a wire that's hot anytime the unit's on, that you can use for pretty much anything you want to turn something else on when you turn the radio on. Okay, and then this customer has also requested my special master input-output box that gives you all your 4-channel preamp outputs, left, right, right rear, left rear, left front, right front subwoofer. Those are all preamp outputs that are they're post EQ, so they are controllable from the volume controls. And then you've got your aux input, which ordinarily I would put the aux input on the back of the radio, but since this customer has requested the master I/O box, it just makes sense to include the aux inputs on that because they're easier to get to once the radio is installed anyway. So we've got that, and then now we'll go into the 8-track, and then one more little. Here's the USB receptacle for the USB reader feature, and then this customer has also requested a USB port only for charging, which I've added, and then this is only for charging. It won't transmit information or play any sticks. That's what this one's for. Okay, so now we'll look at the 8-track. Oh, and one more thing about this radio. I've installed an extra jack. This is a control jack, and when you plug the 8-track player will have a matching plug that plugs into this, and all that's for is so that the radio will come back on immediately after you pull the tape out. Without this control in place, when you pull the tape out, there would be a 20-second delay before the radio came back, just like there is after using the aux input. So now we'll move on to the 8-track. unit, and these are for the same system. And of course, this has been converted. I've got it's got a new motor. It's got a brand new tape head preamp. It's got all the old stuff ripped out. Here's the speed for the motor. If you need to adjust the speed, if you ever need to adjust the speed, it's right there on this particular unit. And then we'll go to the back of this, and as you can see, I've done some drilling back here and installed some jacks. We no longer have any of the original connectors for the 8-track. This will plug directly into the converted radio, and these two jacks are called tape out. Those will go to the aux in on the box, or if it was like most other jobs, these would just plug into the back of your radio. This customer has the aux jacks on this box, so the 8-track will plug into this, and then your aux signal, if you're using it, would plug into the 8-track, because the switching occurs inside the 8-track. So we have to have the aux going into the 8-track deck. So that's where you would plug your aux input into. And as you can see, I've installed two RCA jacks instead of that cheap little round 3.5 millimeter jack, because the little 3.5 millimeter jack is a very inferior type of connector. They're prone to get noisy and lose contact over the years. So this is a more robust type of connector, and the customer just buys an adapter cable, and then when that little 3.5 millimeter connector wears out, all the customer has to do is replace the adapter cable. He doesn't have to pull the unit out of his dash again. So there's that. And of course, you've got a hot and a ground for the power. And then here's our control wire that I was talking about that plugs into that little jack in the back of the radio. It's got a banana plug. It'll only go in that one connector. It's impossible to accidentally insert this into the wrong thing. So that's a safety issue there. So now we're ready to hook this whole system up and make sure everything works. So let's start by I'm going to whip out my cool little stand here. You guys are probably pretty used to seeing this by now. Okay, and now since I don't have the car frame to attach the units to, we need to wait to ground these two chassis together. So I'm just going to do a quick jumper wire here. Without this ground, everything will still work, but the 8-track is likely to have horrible distortion at higher listening levels because of a poor grounding. So you probably don't have to do this in a car, but I have to do it on the bench. I have to make sure that these two chassis are grounded together. So we're just run a quick little clip, quick little jumper there. Alrighty, and then we're going to get a standard RCA cable, which is not provided, and we're going to plug the tape out jacks to the aux in jacks on the master box. And remember that these jacks would normally be on the back of the radio. So we just plug this into the aux in. Okay, so the 8-track is now connected to the radio signal-wise, and of course, I have a pre-wired connector. I mean, trying to run 12 little jumper wires with alligator clips to test the radio, it's just absolutely insane. So I've already got the standard connector pre-wired to my bench setup. Saves a heck of a lot of time, and it's a lot safer to boot. So we'll just plug this into the bench. This is just like plugging it into your car after you've wired the connector under your dash. And then we need to get some 12-volt power to the 8-track. So we'll hook that up real quick. Alrighty, and then we're going to plug our control wire into the back of the radio. Control wire from the 8-track goes into the back of the radio, and okay, I think we're all hooked up. Chassis are grounded together. We've got the control signal hooked up. It's connected to the bench setup. 8-track has power. So let's turn everything on here and start this little party. Oh, and incidentally, I know it sounds pretty complicated, but you do get full instructions and manuals with your units. This is just for your basic conversion, and then if you requested an add-on card like a USB reader or Bluetooth, then you get a separate manual just for those functions as well. So, and then since this radio originally did not have a left-right balance control, the tone control now is a left-right balance control, and it also serves as a front-rear fader, and that is marked on page 2 of the FMR manual. Customers aren't used to mono radios having a left-right balance control, so I highlight whenever it asks me several questions. It's got a little checklist that I send back with the customer, and we're using the virtual balance control because it doesn't have an original balance. It did have an original fader, but now we're using the virtual fader because the original fader won't work with the current setup. So I always highlight that if it's something the customer is not expecting, is going to wonder about. I always highlight those two things. And then we've got some other stuff that is just incidental to the unit itself. So, okay, I believe we're ready to test her out. Let's turn on our power supply, turn on the bench setup. Alrighty, and do we have an antenna plugged into the radio yet? No antenna yet, so let's plug an antenna in. Sometimes these jacks are kind of hard to find, and they sometimes go in at weird angles too. Alrighty, so we should be ready to go now. Okay, see if we can get a little bit more light on these units here. Okay, we'll do it this way. Okay, that should be good. Everything's turned on. Settings are correct. Turn the radio on. Okay, we're on the FM band. Check, quick check on mic to music balance. Okay, let's run her down the dial. Make sure we pick up some FM stations here.
Year that Trump will deliver his State of the Union address under. This is the second.
Meaning is the definition of you've never been.
Feel the same way about.
Kids Radio, KKLD, The Cloud, not
Spring Road in Cornville.
About 15 so far.
Gators say the pair tied up.
At 100, and what motivated
Safety message this year.
That's about 28 FM stations coming in clearly. Let's flip it over to AM real quick just to make sure we pick up the 3 stations that I get in this area. Off on.
For a look at your news.
We all have the touch the lives of those around us.
For all the major RV appliance manufacturers and extended warranty.
Okay, as you know by now, my AM is disturbed by a nearby power line.
8230.
There's 2
Arizona shine.
and 3. Okay.
I'm John Trout, inviting you to join.
Okay, now let's go back to FM, just so I can demonstrate the virtual balance and fader functions. We're going to go to our output level meters so we can see the results of our adjustments. This unit now has a virtual balance and fader control, and they're all in the tone control. Now, so we're going to activate the. Let's get a less popular music here, so I don't get nailed for copyright.
5 a.m. weekdays on the News 1490.
Okay, I'm going to activate the virtual front rear fader by turning my tone control twice to the right. So the first thing I'm going to do is rotate this tone control to where there's room to rotate in either direction. And I'm going to rotate it twice to the right. A lady should come on saying, fader adjust. So let's try that.
Fader adjust.
Okay, fader adjust. And now the same control is adjusting our front rear fader. All the way front, rear,
by the name of Hillary Clinton.
front, rear. Okay, I'm going to center the speakers. I'm going to stop adjusting it and
Fader set.
Fader set. Okay, when she says that, that means that setting's been saved, and you can return this tone control to how you like it to sound, which for most people is going to be all the way up. Okay, now I'm going to activate the left-right balance control. Same procedure, except we turn this control twice to the left. So here we go. Okay, I kind of faltered on that. Let's try this again.
273.
Balance adjust.
Balance adjust, okay.
Election.
All the way left, and keep in mind that I'm adjusting the tone control still. Okay, we're going to center the speakers, stop adjusting it, and balance set. Okay, now we can take this tone control back to how we want it to sound.
Shining sea.
Okay, now let's test the aux input real quick. We're going to feed it into the back of the 8-track player as this particular system requires. Just make sure it switches over. One side, other side. Okay, now it's going to be 20 seconds before the radio comes back on after using the aux input. I mentioned that before. That's because of a Vox circuit that holds onto that aux signal longer than it really needs to, just to make sure it's not constantly switching back and forth between songs and during quiet music segments from your portable audio device and stuff like that. So a few more seconds, she'll be back by herself. There she is. Okay, now we're going to activate the Bluetooth, make sure it goes into pairing mode. We do that by, one of the ways we do that is to give our volume control 2 turns to the right. So let's try that.
Among the Democratic.
Bluetooth ready to pair.
Okay, Bluetooth ready to pair. So the radio is now trying to pair with a portable audio device, and as you know, I don't go to all the trouble to do that on the video. Just make sure it goes into pairing mode. That way we know it's working. While we're waiting for the lady to come back saying pairing not completed, let's see if we can find my radio commercial and test this
Trump could offer Alaska
USB input real quick.
in exchange for support in the next election.
And I even had that little disc set aside.
Permanently elect Jared Kushner run the country, delegating to him decisions whether to go to war.
And of course I cleaned off the bench for the video, so now I don't know where it is. Okay, just gonna plug my little, we don't need this stuff anymore. Okay, so I'm just going to plug my radio commercial into this USB recycle, make sure it plays my radio commercial.
Trump could offer Alaska to the Russians.
Okay, pull the stick out, radio should come back. Alrighty. Now that song I was able to play in its entirety because I wrote it and I own the copyright. So you two police, you can't do nothing. This is my music. You can't tell me I can't play it. It's my stuff. Okay, what's left to test? Oh, the 8-track. That's what everybody's been waiting for. Okay, let's test the 8-track. We're just going to pop some Neil Sedaka into the 8-track here and make sure that it plays. Nice, bright sounding 8-track thanks to my special preamp. Let's switch tracks. Now when I do a full system conversion, the controls on the 8-track no longer function. It's all done by the radio. The only thing that still works on the 8-track is the program selector button. Okay, now let's pop in some Herb Alpert, because Herb Alpert is my earliest musical influence, and I've been listening to his music all my life since I was 5 years old, and I'm going to see him this month. Herb Alpert is coming with Lonnie Hall, that's a former lead singer for Sergio Mendes in Brazil 66, now Herb Alpert's wife. They're coming to the Yavapai County Performing Arts Center the 26th of February, that's this month. So I'm looking pretty forward to going and seeing the guy that I've been admiring all my life. So let's admire him now a little bit. Okay, switch tracks a bunch of times. Now you might know that Herb Alpert. Okay, pull the tape out. Radio should come right back. And there's the radio. Now, interesting note about Herb Alpert. This album, Herb Alpert didn't even have a band when this album came out. This is his first album. Herb Alpert played all the instruments and did all the production himself on this album, and it's in stereo, which is even more amazing for back then, because this is like 19, probably 64, 65, 66. Wasn't a whole lot of stereo going on, at that time with albums and tapes and stuff. So it's pretty cool that this is in true stereo. And this is Herb Alpert's brainchild. I mean, he did everything on this tape. And so that's a pretty cool little bit of a food for thought there. Okay, the last thing to check is the dial lighting. And you can see that the radio is lighting up in response to my command. The 8-track came without the light, and I unfortunately don't have a replacement to give to them. And since these controls are no longer doing anything anyway, I guess it's not all that terribly important that little bitty light's not there. So that takes care of this. She's ready to go back to the customer. I'm ready to do whatever I need to do to kill some time before the hockey game tonight. I think it's Minnesota Wild against the Detroit Red Wings, and that's going to be a pretty cool game, I think. You've just seen what I can do. This is kind of like my signature conversion to a full system, and as I mentioned before, it doesn't. The 8-track and the radio don't have to be the same brand or for the same car or whatever. Pretty much any 8-track can be made to work properly with a converted or reproduction radio. So my website's in the description below. My phone number, if you need service of this nature, is 928-533-9666. Thanks so much for watching and listening. Thank you very much, Tony, for your business from the middle of our country, Indiana. I spent about a year in Indiana, lived in Monon, worked in Lafayette for a little while, and I was at Fort Wayne once. My girlfriend's son was in a Taekwondo tournament. I think he lost, but at any rate, he's tougher than I am. So thanks so much for watching and listening. We'll see you guys next time.